Todd Chrisley once stood in front of cameras and insisted he had nothing to be sorry for. By the time he said those words, his life had already collapsed in ways few people ever expected. A federal jury had convicted him on every count brought against him. His wife, Julie, had been sent to a different prison hundreds of miles away. Their children were left behind to face the consequences of a case that had dominated headlines for years. The couple's fortune had disappeared, their reputation had been shredded in court, and even when a presidential pardon eventually set them free, the fallout from everything that happened did not simply vanish. Julie walked out of prison claiming she had developed serious lung problems from black mold inside the facility where she was held. Todd walked out refusing to admit guilt, and the restitution bill hanging over their family still remained. The story of Todd Chrisley did not begin with television fame or courtroom drama. It began decades earlier in a quiet corner of the American South. Michael Todd Chrisley was born on April 6, 1969 in Georgia. While his birthplace appears on official documents, the environment that truly shaped him was the small town of Westminster, South Carolina. Westminster was not a place known for luxury or celebrity. At the time Todd was growing up there, the population was fewer than 3,000 people. Life moved slowly, neighbors knew each other, and the values of the region were rooted in tradition and discipline. Todd grew up with the nickname he would later make famous, Todd. His parents, Jean Raymond Chrisley and Elizabeth Faye Chrisley, raised their sons with strict rules and expectations. Their household reflected the culture of the region, respect for elders, strong work ethic, and a belief that success required persistence. Todd attended Westminster High School, where he developed a reputation for confidence and ambition. But instead of following the typical path of college and traditional career building, he decided to enter the workforce immediately after graduation. He wanted to make money, and he wanted to make it fast. Behind the disciplined environment of Todd's childhood, the Chrisley family carried a quiet tragedy that few outsiders ever heard about. Before Todd was born, his parents had welcomed another child into their home. His older brother, Derek, arrived on October 29, 1971. But Derek's life lasted only 4 months. He died on October 23rd of that same year. Todd was just a toddler at the time, far too young to understand what had happened, yet the grief left a permanent mark on the household. His parents became fiercely protective of their remaining children. The loss shaped the way they raised Todd and his younger brother, Randy. It also created an emotional shadow that stayed with the family for decades. One of the strongest influences on Todd's outlook came from watching his mother work. Faye Chrisley spent years employed inside a textile mill, a demanding environment known for long hours and exhausting physical conditions. According to Todd's own memories, she often worked 60 hours each week. That meant 12-hour shifts surrounded by loud machinery, cotton dust, and the constant pressure of factory production schedules. She left home before sunrise. She returned long after dark. Those routines were not temporary. They were the foundation of the family's survival. Years later, Todd shared a childhood photograph of his mother and wrote about the sacrifices she made. He credited her determination as one of the reasons he learned early that financial security required relentless effort. Watching her endure those conditions left a deep impression on him. He saw firsthand that money rarely came easily, and he carried that lesson into adulthood. While Todd's childhood unfolded in Westminster, another young life was developing only a short distance away. Julie Hughes was born on January 9, 1973. Her upbringing was far more modest than the lifestyle she would later display on television. Julie grew up in a double-wide trailer with her family, where space was limited and resources were tight. Her father, Harvey Hughes, worked a series of jobs throughout his life. He began as a mechanic when he was still a teenager. Later, he worked for Advance Auto Parts, eventually training as an electrician before experiencing a religious calling that changed his direction completely. In 1978, he became an ordained Baptist minister. Julie's mother, Pam, supported the household by working as a bank teller. Their family life revolved around church services, community gatherings, and the strong moral teachings of Faith Baptist Church, where Harvey eventually became pastor. Julie's childhood was simple but structured. Faith, discipline, and family loyalty formed the center of her world. Todd and Julie's paths finally crossed in the early 1990s. At the time, Julie was working at a local bank that happened to be owned by one of Todd's acquaintances. Todd walked into the building one day while going through a difficult period in his personal life. He was in the middle of a divorce with his first wife, Teresa Terry, and that meeting would change everything. According to Todd's later recollection, Julie was wearing a yellow dress when he first saw her. He described the moment as immediate and unforgettable. Within a short period of time, they began a relationship. Their connection developed quickly, and on May 25, 1996, they married. Julie was 9 months pregnant with their first child when the wedding took place. The bank employee from a small-town trailer park had suddenly become part of a life that would soon attract national attention. But Todd's earlier marriage had already left behind a complicated history. Years before meeting Julie, Todd had met Teresa Terry when she was only 17 years old. He was 21. Their relationship moved quickly, and by the time Teresa turned 19, she was pregnant with their daughter, Lindsay. Todd was 21 when they decided to marry. Not long afterward, they welcomed a son named Kyle. What began as young love eventually deteriorated into something far more painful. Teresa later described the marriage as emotionally controlling and sometimes violent. In court documents, she claimed Todd dictated many aspects of her daily life, from how she dressed to who she was allowed to see. She said the relationship gradually isolated her from friends and family, and by 1994 the situation had escalated to a breaking point.